When I married Monica, I knew I wasn't just marrying a woman. I was stepping into a family that had already been built, damaged, and divided long before I arrived. Cole was 20. Ethan was 18. They didn't need bedtime stories or someone to teach them how to ride a bicycle. They needed tuition payments, car insurance, gas money, phones, clothes, medical bills, and a home they could return to whenever the world became inconvenient. I paid for all of it. Not because I wanted to replace Derek, their biological father. I never asked them to call me Dad. I never erased his photographs or spoke badly about him. I only tried to become a steady presence where he had chosen to be an occasional one. When Cole's college payment was due, I covered it. When Ethan wrecked his car, I paid the deductible. When the boys wanted to join us on family trips, I bought the tickets, reserved the rooms, and handed them spending money. I told myself that love was measured by what a man was willing to carry. I carried everything. At first, they thanked me. Then the gratitude shortened into nods. The nods became silence. Eventually, my help stopped looking like kindness to them. It became an entitlement. Derek encouraged it. He would take them out for dinner twice a month, pay for a few drinks, tell old stories, and remind them that blood was blood. According to him, I was merely Monica's husband. A temporary authority. A wallet with a wedding ring. You only have to listen to your real father, he told them. I knew because they repeated it. The final argument began over something small. Ethan had taken my truck without asking and returned it nearly empty. When I confronted him, Cole stepped between us as if I were some stranger threatening his brother. You don't get to order us around, Cole said. I looked at Monica. She lowered her eyes. Ethan laughed. We only listen to our real father. There it was. Not shouted. Not accidental. A verdict. I waited for Monica to defend me. To remind them who had kept that roof above their heads. To finally say that disrespect had consequences. Instead, she touched my arm and whispered, They're upset. Don't make this bigger than it is. Something inside me went quiet. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I walked into my office, closed the door, and called Derek. He answered with the lazy confidence of a man who had never been presented with the cost of his own opinions. I told him calmly, The boys have made their position clear. You are the only father they recognize. So beginning today, every responsibility attached to that title belongs to you. He laughed at first. Then I listed everything. Cole's tuition. Ethan's insurance. Both phone plans. Gas. Clothes. Food outside the house. Subscriptions. Trips. Emergency expenses. Every extra dollar I had been quietly bleeding for years. The laughter died. You can't just dump this on me, he said. I'm not dumping anything, I replied. I'm returning your responsibilities. That night, I canceled every automatic payment connected to them. The consequences came quickly. Cole received notice that his next tuition installment had failed. Ethan's phone stopped working 2 days later. Their fuel cards declined. The family vacation Monica had been planning suddenly included only 2 tickets instead of 4. They came to me one problem at a time. I gave them the same answer. Call your father. Derek lasted 3 weeks before he appeared at our door looking exhausted. I didn't know it cost this much, he admitted. Of course he didn't. He had enjoyed the title while I paid the price. Cole and Ethan stood behind him, stripped of their arrogance. Monica was beside them, crying before anyone had even spoken. Cole apologized first. He said he had never understood how many parts of his life existed because I worked for them. Ethan admitted he had repeated Derek's words because they made him feel loyal, powerful, untouchable. Then Monica looked at me. Her confession hurt more than theirs. She said she had excused their behavior because she feared they would accuse her of choosing me over them. So she chose silence instead. And every time she stayed silent, she left me alone. Derek promised to stop poisoning them against me. The boys promised respect. Monica promised she would never again undermine my place in our home. I listened. Then I gave them one final chance. Not because their apology erased anything. It didn't. I restored some of the support slowly, under clear conditions. Cole took a part-time job. Ethan began paying part of his insurance. Derek contributed every month. Monica backed me openly whenever boundaries were tested. The house changed. Not overnight. But it changed. The boys began asking instead of taking. They thanked me without being reminded. They stopped measuring fatherhood by blood and started measuring it by presence, sacrifice, and accountability. I forgave them, but I never forgot the moment they told me who I was to them. That memory became the boundary protecting all of us. Because sometimes a family does not learn through patience. Sometimes it learns when the payments stop, the privileges disappear, and the people who demanded respect without giving any are finally forced to calculate the true cost of contempt. I gave them another chance. There will never be a third. Was I wrong to make them pay for the lesson before I allowed them to become my family again? The first months after their apology were not peaceful. They were careful. There is a difference. Peace is what grows when trust returns. Carefulness is what people practice when they fear losing something they once believed could never be taken away. Cole began greeting me when he entered the house. Ethan stopped leaving his dishes on the table. Monica asked for my opinion before making plans that affected us both. Derek sent money on the first of every month, usually without a message. From the outside, it looked like healing. Inside me, the wound remained open. I watched every gesture, every polite word, every sudden offer to help, and wondered whether they respected me or merely feared another cancelled payment. Their gratitude arrived only after comfort disappeared. That truth followed me from room to room. I hated myself for doubting them. I hated them for giving me reason to. Cole found a job at a hardware store near campus. He worked evenings, came home smelling of dust and cut lumber, and complained about customers who treated him like he was invisible. One night, he stood in the kitchen rubbing his aching hands. "I understand now," he said. I looked up from my coffee. "What?" "What it feels like to work all day and have people act like what you do doesn't matter." He did not mention me. He didn't need to. Ethan changed more slowly. He had always been the sharper one, the brother who could turn cruelty into a joke and then accuse me of being too sensitive. Now that he had to pay part of his insurance, he examined every receipt. He stopped driving across town for entertainment. He learned the price of gasoline. One evening, he placed an envelope beside my plate. Inside was money. Not much. But it was his. "For the truck," he said. The night I took it. Months had passed since then. I had almost forgotten the empty tank. Almost. I pushed the envelope back. "Keep it." His face tightened. "I'm trying to make it right. Then remember it." He nodded and took the money. That mattered more than the apology. Monica struggled with the boundaries most of all. For years, she had survived conflict by softening everything. When her sons crossed a line, she called it stress. When Derek insulted me, she called it jealousy. When I withdrew, she called it pride. Now I refused softer names. Disrespect was disrespect. Manipulation was manipulation. Silence was a choice. One Sunday, Derek came for dinner. It was Monica's idea. She believed we needed to sit at one table if the family was ever going to become whole. I agreed, though every instinct warned me not to. Derek arrived carrying a bottle of wine and the expression of a man entering someone else's territory while pretending it was neutral ground. The boys were polite. Monica was nervous. I carved the roast and listened to silverware strike porcelain. For 20 minutes, nothing happened. Then Derek began talking about Cole's tuition. He said the college had raised its fees. He said his own expenses were climbing. He said perhaps I could resume covering a larger share, since I earned more. The room froze. There it was. The old arrangement, returning through a different door. Cole lowered his eyes. Ethan stopped chewing. Monica looked at me, waiting. Months earlier, she would have explained Derek's position. She would have asked me to be reasonable. She would have turned my refusal into a moral failure. This time, she placed her fork down. "No," she said. Derek blinked. "I wasn't talking to you. You're in my home, talking about my husband's money. You are talking to me." I watched her carefully. Her hands trembled, but her voice did not. "The agreement stands," she continued. "You contribute. The boys contribute. He chooses what help he gives. Nobody is entitled to it." Derek looked toward Cole and Ethan, expecting support. Neither gave it. Cole spoke first. "Mom's right." Ethan nodded. "We can work more." Derek laughed bitterly. "So now everybody's against me?" I knew that sentence. It was the refuge of a man who called accountability betrayal. "No one is against you," I said. "We are simply no longer beneath you." His face darkened. He pushed his chair back and left without touching the wine. The front door slammed. No one chased him. That sound once would have shaken the house. This time, it marked the moment the house finally became ours. Later that night, Monica found me sitting alone on the porch. She rested her hand on my shoulder, but she did not ask whether I was still angry. "I should have done that years ago," she said. "Yes." The word hurt her. It was supposed to. Forgiveness without truth is only another form of surrender. She sat beside me in silence. Through the window, I could see Cole washing dishes while Ethan dried them. They were arguing quietly about where the plates belonged, but there was no contempt in it. No cruelty. Just two young men doing work they once assumed someone else would always do. I wanted to believe the family had changed forever. But trust does not return because people apologize once. It returns through repetition. Through ordinary days. Through choices made when no privilege is threatened and no audience is watching. So I waited. Weeks became months. Derek kept paying. The boys kept working. Monica stopped shielding them from consequences. Slowly, the tension in my chest began to loosen. Not disappear. Loosen. I learned that boundaries are not walls built to punish people. They are doors with locks. Those who respect the house are given a key. Those who abuse it remain outside. My family had finally understood that love did not mean endless access to my labor, my money, or my dignity. They had one final chance. So far, they were earning it. But tell me honestly, when respect appears only after consequences, is it real respect, or merely fear wearing a better face? A year passed before I realized something had changed inside me. It wasn't the house. It wasn't the routines. It was the silence in my own mind. For years, every unexpected phone call had made me wonder which bill needed paying. Every conversation about the boys ended with another request, another emergency, another expense that somehow became my responsibility. I had lived as though my only purpose was solving problems other people created. Now the phone rang less. When it did, it was usually Cole asking whether I wanted to watch one of his weekend baseball games after work. Sometimes Ethan called because he had found a better insurance rate and wanted my opinion before signing the papers. Neither conversation ended with, "Can you pay for it?" That difference mattered more than either of them realized. Cole graduated the following spring. As I watched him cross the stage, I remembered every tuition payment I had once made without hearing so much as a thank you. Those memories no longer filled me with resentment. Instead, they reminded me how easily generosity becomes invisible when it never has limits. After the ceremony, he walked straight toward me instead of searching for Derek in the crowd. He handed me his diploma. "I wanted you to hold it first." The paper wasn't heavy. The meaning was, "I couldn't have finished without everything you did," he said quietly. "Not just the money. The example." I looked at the young man standing before me and barely recognized the angry boy who had once declared he only listened to his real father. People really can change, but only if they first accept responsibility for who they were. Ethan changed differently. His transformation came through consistency instead of words. Every Saturday morning he helped around the house without being asked. He changed the oil in Monica's car, repaired loose fence boards, cleaned the gutters, and quietly replaced things before anyone noticed they were broken. One afternoon I found him repairing the old deck. "You didn't have to do this," I told him. He smiled without looking up. "I know." That answer meant more than any apology. Respect given freely always sounds different from respect demanded. Derek remained part of their lives, but something fundamental had shifted between us. One evening he asked if we could meet for coffee. 5 years earlier I would have expected another argument. Instead, he looked tired. Older. "I owe you something," he admitted. "You don't owe me money." "I wasn't talking about money." For several moments he stared into his untouched coffee before finally speaking. "I spent years making myself look like the hero because it was easier than becoming one." I said nothing. "I convinced the boys that biology made me their father." "You proved fatherhood is measured by responsibility." Those words surprised me more than I expected. "I can't undo what I encourage," Derek continued. "But I wanted you to know I see it now." We shook hands before leaving. Not as friends. Not even as family. Just as two men who finally understood the truth either of us could change. That evening Monica asked how the meeting had gone. He apologized. She smiled. "So did we." I nodded. "Yes." But apologies only matter when life afterward looks different. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "It does." She was right. Our home no longer revolved around fear, guilt, or obligation. It revolved around accountability. The boys had learned that support is a gift, never an entitlement. Monica had learned that protecting her marriage sometimes meant correcting her children instead of excusing them. Derek had learned that claiming the title of father also meant carrying its weight. And I learned something about myself. Boundaries do not destroy families. They reveal which relationships are strong enough to survive honesty. If I had continued paying while accepting disrespect, nothing would have changed. Not them. Not Monica. Not Derek. Not me. Sometimes the kindest thing a man can do is refuse to rescue people from the consequences of their own choices. Only then do they discover the value of what they almost lost. Today, when all of us gather around the same table, the conversations are different. There is laughter where tension once lived. Gratitude where entitlement once stood. Respect where silence once gave cruelty permission to grow. Looking around that table, I finally understand the lesson those painful years taught me. Love without boundaries becomes sacrifice. Boundaries without love become punishment. But when love and boundaries stand together, they become the foundation every family deserves. And if someone ever tells me again that I have no place in my own home, they will already know the answer. Because no one should ever expect another person to keep paying for their own disrespect. So tell me honestly, would you have waited as long as I did before finally drawing the line? People like to believe that one apology can erase years of damage. It cannot. An apology opens a door, but trust walks through it one ordinary day at a time. The first real test came 6 months after Cole graduated. He had received an offer from a company in another state, a job that promised better pay but required him to relocate immediately. He came into my office carrying a folder instead of an expectation. That alone told me how much he had changed. "I need advice," he said. "Not money. Not a favor. Advice." He explained the salary, the cost of moving, the apartment he wanted to rent, and the fear of starting over somewhere he knew no one. When he finished, he waited. Years earlier he would have assumed I would simply solve the problem. Instead, he asked, "What would you do?" We spent nearly 2 hours going through numbers, comparing expenses, discussing contracts and savings. I pointed out mistakes in his budget and suggested cheaper options until his emergency fund became realistic. Finally, he closed the folder. "You've taught me more tonight than any finance class." I smiled. "No. You were finally ready to listen. He accepted the job. For the first time in his adult life, he built something without expecting someone else to carry the weight. Watching him leave was strangely comforting. Not because he was gone. Because he no longer needed rescuing. Ethan faced his own lesson a few months later. A friend convinced him to invest in a business idea that promised quick profits. Before signing anything, he knocked on my workshop door. "I almost agreed yesterday," he admitted. "Then I remembered how expensive bad decisions become." We reviewed the proposal together. Within 15 minutes, the hidden risks were obvious. He quietly folded the papers. "A year ago, I wouldn't have asked." "I know. I would have blamed everyone else afterward." "I know that too." He laughed softly. "That version of me was exhausting." It was. Neither of us pretended otherwise. That honesty became the strongest part of our relationship. At home, Monica continued proving that her promises had not been temporary. Whenever disagreements appeared, she addressed them immediately instead of smoothing them over with excuses. If either boy interrupted me, she corrected them before I had to speak. If she disagreed with me, we discussed it privately instead of turning family decisions into public debates. Respect had become our habit. One evening she admitted something that stayed with me. "I confused keeping everyone happy with keeping the family together. And now I know they aren't the same thing." She was right. Peace built on ignored disrespect eventually collapses under its own weight. Peace built on accountability lasts. Even Derek surprised me. He continued contributing every month without reminders. On birthdays he brought thoughtful gifts instead of flashy ones. He stopped competing with me and started encouraging the boys to appreciate every person who invested in their future. One afternoon he pulled me aside after a barbecue. "I spent years teaching them that being a father was a title." He paused before continuing. "You showed them it's a responsibility." I thanked him. Not because I needed his approval. Because accepting the truth required courage. As the seasons passed, I noticed something I had once believed impossible. The house no longer felt divided into sides. There were no biological lines. No invisible competitions. No quiet struggles over who mattered more. There was simply family. Imperfect. Sometimes stubborn. Occasionally loud. But finally built on mutual respect instead of silent resentment. Looking back, I understand that the hardest decision I ever made was also the healthiest. The day I stopped paying for disrespect was the day everyone began valuing what had always been freely given. That lesson cost all of us something. But it gave us something far greater in return. A family where gratitude replaced entitlement, where responsibility replaced excuses, and where every act of kindness was recognized instead of expected. If I had one message for every step-parent carrying a household while quietly accepting humiliation, it would be this. Never confuse love with limitless sacrifice. The people who truly value you will never demand that you surrender your dignity to prove your devotion. And those who only notice your worth after losing your support must decide whether they deserve another chance at all. Would you have opened that door again, or would you have walked away forever?